Welcome back to the Archive Network. Aurelius here with Malik, curators of the Treaty Archive. We left INF Treaty last time at the INF Treaty did more than remove missiles from Europe. It rewrote the rules of security and diplomacy. Today we pick up where we left off. The immediate aftermath of the INF Treaty was a remarkable period, a time when the world held its breath. Missile silos emptied, their vast chambers echoing with an unsettling silence. Launchers that once threatened cities were methodically dismantled piece by piece. This unprecedented action was a watershed moment in international security. For the first time, an entire class of weapons simply vanished from the arsenals of both superpowers, a sight we never thought we'd witness. It challenged the core of what we considered normal.
But let's not overlook the human cost behind those silos. The dismantling wasn't just about missiles. It meant real communities faced serious economic upheaval. In towns that relied heavily on military installations, job losses hit hard. Families struggled to make ends meet. The price of peace, sometimes at a cost to those who served it, and it's the everyday people who bear that burden. We can't forget their stories in the rush to celebrate disarmament.
True, but the broader implications were significant. Relief spread across Europe like a long-awaited breath. Cities like Bonn and Rome, once gripped by fear, could finally exhale. For decades, the shadow of intermediate-range missiles loomed over them. With their elimination, a new sense of security took root, allowing nations that had felt the pressure most acutely to envision a future without that constant threat hanging overhead. We see how quickly the tides of power can shift.
I see your point, but we really need to think about the psychological impact here. Citizens have protested against the missiles, fearing for their lives and the safety of their families. Now they're witnessing tangible proof that diplomacy can actually yield results. But we have to ask ourselves, is this newfound sense of security real or just an illusion? How long will it take before the fear creeps back in? And what happens to those who still live in that uncertainty?
Security, as you say, is complex, often more so than we like to admit. During this time, NATO's credibility really grew. The alliance showed it could negotiate effectively with the Soviet Union. Verification measures were groundbreaking. We required inspections at missile sites and production facilities, ensuring accountability. It was a delicate dance of cooperation and mistrust. Each side had to tread carefully, balancing their interests while trying to maintain peace. It's a reminder of the intricacies we face in global relations.
But those inspections also fueled a lot of resentment in the community. People faced constant disruption, and the intrusive nature of the checks just added to their anxiety. Jobs were lost. Families struggled to make ends meet. And some residents even started to wonder if the price of peace was too high. Trust, once built with hard work, feels so fragile now, doesn't it? It's heartbreaking to see how fear can unravel the fabric of a community.
I concede that point. However, we must recognize that the risk of nuclear war in Europe dropped dramatically during that period. The specter of annihilation faded from daily life, allowing people to breathe a little easier. The treaty's impact reached far beyond the weapons that were removed. It laid a vital foundation for future agreements, like the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, which would help further reduce tensions. This shift in the landscape of arms control was significant for all involved.
Yet, critics argued that this focus on land-based missiles was short-sighted. They pointed out that emerging threats from the air and sea were being completely overlooked. Even the most stringent inspections can't fully eliminate the risk of cheating. As technology evolves, the challenges become even more complex. We have to ask ourselves, could another arms race be looming just around the corner? It's the people who suffer the most in these situations, and we can't afford to ignore that.
The world was changing rapidly, and we all felt it. In the late 1980s, we witnessed the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the reunification of Germany. Those events opened the door to new security challenges, no longer just a tug-of-war between superpowers. Rising regional powers began to assert themselves, leading to conflicts and alliances that reshaped the global landscape. It was a moment of transformation, and we had to pay attention to how these shifts would influence the future.
And then, in 2019, the US withdrew from the INF treaty. They claimed it was because of Russian violations, which took a lot of folks by surprise. It felt like we were back in a time of deep mistrust, where competition went unchecked. The collapse of this treaty didn't just impact governments. It raised serious concerns about the safety of families and communities everywhere. People started worrying about what this meant for future arms control efforts and the threat of conflict.
Despite that setback, the treaty's legacy endures. It fundamentally changed how the world thinks about verification and transparency in arms control. We must remember the spirit of cooperation it unleashed during such a tense period. Those collaborative efforts remind us that even in the darkest times, there's hope. The lessons we learned from this agreement continue to inform our ongoing efforts for a safer world, guiding us as we navigate the complexities of international relations today.
Now, as we face new challenges, we have to ask ourselves, can the lessons of the INF Treaty really guide us today? The reality is that advanced missiles and the rise of new nuclear powers complicate our security landscape significantly. We're not just dealing with numbers and strategies. The struggle for security is deeply personal, affecting families and communities everywhere. We must remember that the fight for peace is ongoing, and it's one we can't afford to ignore.
The INF Treaty did more than just remove missiles from Europe. It fundamentally rewrote the rules of security and diplomacy. The world was reshaped in ways we're still grappling with today, but history's judgment is yet to come. Each agreement we forge is a step forward, but the struggle for lasting peace isn't over. What comes next will depend on how well we learn from our past missteps and successes. We must ask ourselves, are we ready for the next chapter?
That's where we leave it this time. INF Treaty continues. The story isn't finished yet. Find the full series on the Treaty Archive, part of the Archive Network. We'll be back with the next chapter.